Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first score update in the great Kyle v. Jake TBR competition of 2024. What are you all thinking? I have read the first two books, Grace of Kings, the Kyle pick, and the Shards of Honor, the Jake pick, both new authors. We'll get the new author bonus point. We'll see how many stars each one got so we can compare the initial scores. There'll be two more books to go for both Kyle and Jake after this. But I'm curious. I've been pretty hush-hush on how I've been feeling about the book. So just curious to hear what are you thinking about where things stand?
Well, I feel like you like both quite a bit, but so for those who are not in Discords, Ben did comment on both books, but he just kind of stopped about 25% into both books. But he commented quite enthusiastically for both. To me, it felt like he really enjoyed the style of Grace of Kings, which enjoyment of that style is kind of the biggest factor. So I suspect he liked Grace of Kings more. My hope is that we could have one is a strong 5-star and one is a weak 5-star type thing going on. I'm fairly confident you liked both based on I was already pretty confident you would like both. And also your reactions made me more so. But I feel like if I get away unscathed here, I feel like I escaped, you know?
I think you liked both also, but the middle section, like I've seen a lot of people read Grace of Kings, and I noticed there's a lot of people who really like the beginning, and then that enthusiasm wanes for like the entire middle chunk of the book, and then by the end it kind of gets them back. That feels like a trajectory that a lot of people get, and you went suspiciously quiet right after about the time that people usually start being like, oh yeah, there's a lot of head hopping and random political machinations. So it either went one of two ways. Either you started to like lose touch with the middle portion, or you just got fully immersed, as you would say, and it was like a full 5-star. But because of that, I'm gonna hedge my bets and just go against Jake and say that I think Shards of Honor might have gotten the nod, but I do think that you liked both of them quite a bit.
You bring up good points, and I think Ben should consider those while awarding me the victory.
So I'll start with my first read, which was Grace of Kings. I just come off of a kind of shorter palate cleanser, Alex Verus book, so I wanted to go to a longer, chunkier, denser one before using this as a hopeful palate cleanser. And so this one was an incredibly fascinative read. I've definitely never read a book like this before, and
that could still be either.
I've seen some interview stuff with Ken Liu. Like he feels like someone who's extremely philosophical and intellectual and serious. I wasn't expecting the lightness of this book. Like there's a lot of humorous tone, and maybe I was also doing a lot of the audiobook with Michael Kramer.
I don't think it's very humorous, but okay, interesting.
Kramer is injecting a lot of kind of lightness into a lot of the voicings. And
well, you know what? Okay, Cooney is actually pretty funny sometimes.
There's the part where they have like the gray bands to like spy, and then they have to get like the other people to spy on the spy, and then the other people to spy on the spy, spying on the spy. I was like, I remember reading that, being like, oh, is this book satire? What's going on?
Yeah, there was a lightness I wasn't expecting, and definitely humor that I just wasn't expecting. So that was a pleasant surprise. I was into that, and for a book that's taking this kind of omniscient, kind of historical, like massive scope approach, I found that it was just very engaging on a chapter by chapter basis. We were getting a lot of POVs, so it wasn't like fully distanced kind of omniscient narrator the whole time. It's maybe that for like part of it here and there, but I loved getting like the pantheon, the gods, kind of watching events and commenting on them. That was a big hit with me because I love that in the Iliad, which
that's the direct
I read in college.
So, yeah,
and so that was cool to see that. Yeah. So yeah, that you doing that in like a college class where you're getting it broken down and discussing with everyone is the way to do it. But I love that. And so I think I was expecting this to be drier or even to cover maybe more ground than it did, because it definitely settled down into a lot of some character writing, especially around the main character of this book. I didn't even expect it to have a main character kind of through line. So there was a lot here that engaged me, from just the lots of cool world building things, the creativity in some of the, like, how they got out of situations or the strategizing, really intelligent characters actually devising really intelligent strategies or making smart political moves. And I really thought the political theming came through just in a very coherent way throughout. So a lot of things here were working great, but I would say Kyle might have hit the nail on the head that when I went quiet in the middle portion, I would just say that I was engaged throughout, but I never got fully invested.
Say it.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting to get too immersed in this. But because of the style of it going in, I knew the style was going to be a little more distanced and kind of more like a historical writing style. But so I wasn't. But even so, like, even without the immersion aspect, I just found myself not fully getting grabbed into all of the kind of cultural conflicts and the political plot lines. And a lot of the areas of Dara, I don't think were well established, and were just like these names of the different states that were just thrown around, and I never felt too invested in a lot of the different states and cultures. And in the end, I mostly was invested in the book because of my investment in the main character and that situation and what would happen with him.
As you should be.
Which has me excited for the sequels and the change in style.
Wall Storms, my pick. Let's go.
But I would say that a lot of the other POVs just I found engaging, but it never really got me deeply invested. And a very common rating for me with book ones, before I've spent too much time in a world with an author with a kind of setup, I often don't get too invested until some of that setup starts to develop or pay off. And so a good book one experience, certainly unique. And I was very impressed. But a very typical 4-star book one experience for me with Grace of Kings, where I was engaged.
I this all the way through, ladies and gentlemen.
Would you say the future of the world is in your hands?
Yes.
Kyle did call it. This wasn't the kind of like 5-star read where it's like every minute I'm not reading it, it's calling me to pick it up. I read it fairly leisurely over the course of a bunch of days, and so yeah, good solid 4-star read. And I think it's a really cool way to set up the series and covering so much ground and setting up what's to come in a really interesting way, where I have the full lay of the land and everything that's leading up to this moment, where I feel like the series proper is really going to be maybe starting in Wall of Storms, because no one wrote a series like Ken Liu. Like, this is such a strange, cool thing he did of like, I'm going to write a very different book one and then completely change the style towards the more traditional, like, modern fantasy style. Really bold move. And I kind of love that. And I wanted to give it 5 stars almost just for the boldness, but in terms of my reading experience compared to my usual star ratings, like, this is definitely a kind of 4-star read.
I feel like Fonda Lee almost did it in reverse. Not quite to the same extent, but Fonda Lee started more like traditional narrative and then zoomed out to more time skippy, not going third person omniscient, obviously. But anyway, now you can give Wall of Storms 5 stars as is proper.
Yeah,
and
I'm way more excited for you to read Wall of Storms.
And Kyle and me can break even on your Ken Liu scores. And we will have just gotten you to read the Dandelion Dynasty with no damage, which is actually us both winning, I think.
I agree.
And so Kyle is on the board with the first read with 5 points out of this first round. So a very respectable showing for this. I am very glad that I was finally pushed to read this book, which has been intimidating me for many years, waiting patiently for its turn. And so
would you
thank
say
you.
that it was worth the intimidation factor? Did you think it read easier than you were
No,
expecting?
way easier, way easier. Like, there was not a lot of actual, like, world building to get a handle on. Like, there's
it's because it's China.
it's all pretty contained still on just like one archipelago.
He's not wrong.
And then, like I said, we follow some characters more than I thought we would. So there were some real anchor points there.
Yeah, it's
Also,
not
the
like
reason the different
it's not as
state-
challenging.
the reason the different city-states don't, or like the different nations don't have as much of a thing is because this is based on the Warring States period, which is when there were 6 or 7 different factions warring in China. They were all still like ethnically Chinese and like culturally Chinese, and like they would have had differences, but like largely they would have been aspects of the same people. So that would be why, because he's just like pulling from that, so he wouldn't be like, these people are going to be super different this way. So it was just
Yeah.
That's not something that I would have ever done as a criticism, but I also already had that background, so it like never even fazed me. But I totally get why that would be a thing.
Amazing use of the title throughout the book too, and the dandelion symbol, the flower symbols throughout. Really cool stuff going on. I love some of the action scenes. He didn't dwell on the action, but in some of the strategizing, so there are some really cool moments. Probably don't want to give away in a non-spoiler chat like we're doing now. But one stratagem involving the ocean was really, really cool, or a couple involving ocean travel. What were you about to say?
I was just saying we should move to the next book because we gotta go.
Yeah. All right.
Holding me in suspense.
I think might be starting Wall of Storms tonight, possibly tomorrow. All right, we are on to Shards of Honor, another book 1 in a series. So this one,
I would like to note that he asked me about the next books in the reading order before we were on here, and that made me feel a little bit less panicked about this now. Moving on. It's like, so which one do I read next? I'm like, so it's not a 1-star. That's something. Because there's no obligation to read the next ones. If he hated it, I don't, unless he's madly big branding me, in which case you have my respect, Ben. All right. I got that preamble.
This is from 1986, and I thought this one was a big wild card in this competition because I have not been reading like older books like pre-90s, mostly pre-2000s in the last bunch of years.
Wheel Time, Realm of the Otherlings. When did Gardens of the Moon come out?
Those were all 90s.
Those are all 90s, yeah.
You said mostly not pre-90s or pre-2000s. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's not true. Not that much pre-90s, but is there really that much difference between a book come out in 1990 and 1986? Like,
I don't know. The 80s,
40
I think
years.
They have a kind of cultural whole thing going on in that decade in America, and I do think that it felt a little bit older stylistically, and it almost gave me some vibes of like older Hollywood movies with this kind of middle-aged kind of duo at the heart of the book, and their banter and events. This slim book, like 300 mass market pages, covered so much ground, and I was starting it and I'm like, wow, this is really fast moving and some intense events are happening, and I kind of liked the style. And then just like important event after important event just kept on happening, and we just would go between chapters like pretty big time jumps. This is just so much faster paced in terms of narrative events happening than I'm used to with sci-fi like The Expanse or Sun Eater, where very little chunks of time are covered in massive books.
Recently compared to Dresden.
Yeah. This feels like, but even in Dresden, like each book only covers
that's
a couple
true.
days, maybe.
Usually a couple days. Yeah.
Whereas like we're just like blasting through.
Flying. Yeah, we flying in Shards of Honor. We move.
And so like I was throughout the beginning, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm engaged by this whole thing. And in the middle, I was just curious where this was going, and then it's like, oh my goodness, like we are wrapped up in huge, intense, like galaxy shaking events here all of a sudden, and things got real, and I found myself getting more emotionally invested in this than I was expecting to. Like halfway through, I was still thinking like oh, this is probably going to be like a normal 4-star book one. But like some of the writing, just the prose choices, the little asides that we get in Cordelia's POV, just hit pretty hard, like emotionally. This is top tier sci-fi adventure, like with sophistication. Like I had to reread parts to feel like I got little details correct or figured out what was going on. Like things aren't just immediately obvious, that you have to use your brain to process really what's just happening some of the time. And I feel like this is really intelligent sci-fi adventure with a lot of kind of mature emotion and wisdom packed in. So I was very much struggling by the end with my rating, because I felt for a while that it was headed for the just like straight usual typical, like I was engaged but not too invested kind of 4-star rating for a book one. But then I just couldn't sit there with that after the amazing end and like the last half where I was getting more really invested and hooked and had to keep going and not stop. And so I think I am going for this one for 4.5 stars.
We take that
for Shards of Honor.
I didn't know we had half stars.
I very occasionally award half stars. On Goodreads, I always have to round, but sometimes I do note a half-star rating. And so I can't give this a 4-star and for the competition have it equal with Grace of Kings, because I think I did overall enjoy this, get more invested in this book. And so
this is lame. This is incorrect.
I know what Cal's about to say, and I have to say, if I was on the other side, it's quite possible I would be making the same argument, but instead I shall bask in my victory.
What is my argument?
Well, I think you're about to argue that he's only giving it 4.5 because it's a competition and because he feels it was meaningfully better. He liked it meaningfully more than Grace of Kings, but in the case of normally reviewing it, he would have given both 4 stars and one would just be a softer 4 stars. And that this is tampering to fit the competition to award winner.
No, I actually think the other way would have been more overtly tampering if he gave it 4 just to keep it even and more suspenseful.
Okay.
I think there's no way for him to successfully not be part of a competition and know that. So that's going to inherently be something that's part of the thing. I think Shards of Honor being shorter is what really just did it, because that middle part of Grace of Kings is what loses some people. And then people are always like, oh, well, like there was just like a lot of stuff in the middle. I was like, screw the middle. Just forget about the middle. Think about all the good stuff.
So what you're saying is that Shards of Honor got the higher score because a higher percentage of the words in it were good.
No, because it's
I
just not as
actually,
good as Grace of Kings. So
I didn't notice a kind of dip in Grace of Kings in the middle. I was pretty uniformly engaged with that one from beginning to end, but that engagement level was always just like not fully wrenching my emotional investment.
He doesn't want to say immersed for some reason.
For some reason, it's his word. It's your brand. Stop straying off brand. Like it's fine.
He's waiting for Wall of Storms to talk about.
I'd probably say I wasn't fully immersed in Shards of Honor throughout either. Like I don't think Bujold like spends much time on setting description and setting the scenes, and I wasn't able to visualize very well what was going on here. But I felt I just loved this story, and like I was not expecting. I thought this was the Vorkosigan saga. I didn't expect this to be a single POV tale from a female kind of explorer's perspective. Cordelia.
What did you think it was about?
I thought this was the Vorkosigan saga was going to be like the Dresden Files, like just be the Vorkosigan POV. And so that was a cool surprise. And then like meeting Vorkosigan, I think there's just amazing characterization done of Vorkosigan, and even some of the very minor side characters from not being in their POVs. I was just super impressed with the character writing and the plotting
to not know things about books when you go into them is very impressive.
Yeah, I
never lived my life that way.
Almost nothing about what this experience was going to be like, and everything was a pleasant surprise. I like this, to me felt like if Sun Eater started an Empire of Silence from Valka's POV, but where she meets a Hadrian who is like, middle-aged Hadrian and not young teenage Hadrian. Like that's like
For sure.
what this felt like, and it was so cool to get a different style of story and main character
dynamic.
dynamic.
Was really inspired by Orgos again.
And yeah, I just loved
Good
this. I
choice,
loved how
Doc, yeah.
fast developing the relationship was between Cordelia and Verkuskin. It was just developed in such an interesting and relatable way in some way. Like, man, I was thrilled with this because I really feel like I'm going to have an awesome time with the rest of this series. So
I concur.
Jake, great pick. Kyle's psychologizing there was actually on point because for a while in this, even before going in, I was like, I want this to be a 4-star read. So the competition's tied after the first round. Like I actually thought about that. Like, oh, that'd be cool if everything's tied going into the next round. But I then, as I was reading this, was like fighting, like, oh no, is this creeping beyond a 4-star read?
I complain about you never do half stars. Should be 5. What if I lose this thing by half a star? Oh, half a point. We might have to.
We have Guy Gabriel K and Wallace Storms left, and then Bernard Cornwell.
Yeah,
you've just won the competition.
We're in pretty good shape getting 5
You
points.
won on Shards of Honor.
But if he likes Lions more than Brightness, you would get the favorite book of them all point.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then I would
Wall of
lose
Storms.
by 0.5.
Wall of Storms also could win a favorite book.
Wall of Storms is probably going to win favorite.
I think Brightness will win favorite. But I'm biased because it's my.
So the thing is, he's only read one Guy Gabriel K, and that was a book he really, really loved. But we don't know if it's because it specifically was due to that exact experience.
I don't think he's gonna be like, this isn't France.
No, but there's a bunch of like music stuff in it too. I don't think he's gonna dislike the Guy Gabriel K books. I'm just saying that it might have been that was the special sauce to get Song for a Bone to be like his favorite, and then Lions and Brightness Line of Go might be like, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. But then Wall of Storms is just going to be like...
But counterpoint. Brightness.
I'm arguing for you winning.
And all the other books.
It is not. It is not better than Wall of Storms.
That's why Wall of Storms was a 9.5 according to you for years, and Brightness was an instant and a 10.
It's a 10 now.
It is. It's very good. No,
but I did agonize.
All 3 of those are exceptionally fantastic novels.
Yes.
Brightness is just a little bit better than the other 2.
But when Jake sees Goodreads, because I will post reviews of these on Goodreads, he might be a little upset because I think I will probably round up on Goodreads to this for a 5-star. Because
I'll only argue about it if I end up losing by half a star or tying.
So Jake is on the board. Shards of Honor. Jake is on the board with round 1 with 5.5 points. To Kyle's
also,
5
I'm
points.
just really happy
it's
like
close
because they're like 2 of my favorite series. So
it's close. It's anyone's game, and we have, I think, Wall of Storms coming up next. I'm ready to dive back in, and then I think, I
was just gonna ask what you're gonna do after that one.
Oh, I am gonna be fitting in Fool's, whatever the second
Quest.
Is it
Fool's
Quest? Fool's
Quest
in. Soon, maybe after Wall of Storms, and then, wow, am I really gonna go from Wall of Storms to Fool's Quest to a GGK book? I'm gonna spin the palette cleanser.
You're gonna be
maybe another
damaged. You're gonna be like,
is the next Vorkosigan a palette cleanser? Maybe not.
It's not quite as fast as Shards of Honor, but like it's much faster.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, it's not as fast as Shards of Honor, but I think they all work just because I think they just require less, like, they just have less characters, and they require a little bit less mental energy.
So it might fit in another.
Funnily enough, the third one is even more palette cleansery in that it's just like, the third one is insanely fun.
Ooh.
The third one is, I laughed like a maniac, I think, multiple times. Ooh. Not because like a scene was funny, but like laughing at the situation of just like Oh, Warrior's Apprentice. I'm higher on Warrior's Apprentice, I think, than most Volperskin fans are, but I love that book. It's like it's just so unbelievably fun and entertaining, and then shit gets real, and suddenly you're like, oh, that's where we're going.
Well, I love that Volperskin is having its little booktube moment right now in our sphere. I will
That's me.
We'll try to contribute.
I
to
shall
that.
start another avalanche.
You know, you
So-
really like. I know, like
yeah.
Library Ladder came in with his smooth tones and took some of the credit, but Jake was like the first person that was really championing Guy Gabriel Kay. Now I feel like everybody's reading him, so like, props to you, Jake.
I was the
Oh
pebble.
yeah.
I was the pebble that started the avalanche, but also there were pebbles that started me reading GGK. So in a way, you can credit Nicholas Ames's interview on Daniel Green's channel.
You know, I bet we could credit Guy Gabriel Kay because he was the one who wrote.
That's
them,
unreasonable, Kyle. Come on.
I
What a
remember that
crazy
interview.
suggestion.
I remember that interview. Yeah, you called GGK your favorite author's favorite author. I think Sanderson also mentioned.
Yeah, Sanderson's
liking
called him.
GGK
I'd heard of him
a lot.
before. Sanderson's called him the greatest living author of epic fantasy. He's a lot of authors really like him. He's your favorite author. Like that, your favorite author's favorite author is not like a specific thing. It's like he seems like all the authors. He's just highly regarded among other fantasy authors, it seems, and me. That's
Yeah, this is cool. I'm enjoying reading
too as well, I guess. But whatever.
enjoying reading the influences of some of my more recent favorite authors, like seeing the Sun Eater influence, or seeing the Volperskin influence on Sun Eater was really cool, and then Jim Butcher apparently also a big fan of Bujold. So
Huge fan.
yeah.
Arguably a bigger fan than Rockio. He's like this is my favorite living author. Yeah. So
yeah, I think Rockio worked at Bain and was just like, yeah,
I need to get her to write more, and they were like,
I had to read. He probably just
Speaking
read
of Bujold,
like a
real
lot
quick
of Bain's
before we
catalog.
I randomly was at like a not a Value Village, but like a thrift store today, and I just randomly found this book for $1. I've never heard of it before. It's called The Spirit Ring.
I was gonna ask you about that because you added it to your want to reads on Goodreads, and I was like, how did this come up?
Yeah, and I've never heard of it, and it's just like a standalone, like 300-page book by her. So I found that pretty interesting.
It was like a 3
cool.
point something rating.
Yeah, it doesn't have a good rating, but I mean, whatever. It was $1. So
I'm very curious to see what there's a good chance you read that before I do. Well, maybe you could read it in 5 years. You have a lot of books. And at some point, I'm going to read everything by Lois McMaster Bujold. 3.68. What do my friends think? Zara gave it 3.75. Okay.
I opened this book and everything was upside down. And I was like, oh, this is a misprint. But somebody just put the dust jacket on backwards.
So, Kyle, I know Ben wants us to like keep in suspense, but can we agree that we would rather see Wall of Storms reactions on Discord? Because Wall of Storms reactions are extremely entertaining.
Yes. I mean, if you don't give Wall of Storms 5 stars, we're both just going to be upset with you. So I would rather just get that out of the way early.
Through suspense, please react to Wall of Storms on Discord. Wall of Storms reactions are extremely entertaining.
Ooh.
You can keep the rest of them in suspense. But
Yeah,
Wall
sure.
of Storms, just react.
Man, I like me some GGK reactions as well. But whatever. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We know you're gonna like these. I want Discord reactions. My hobby is living through other people reading stuff and reacting on Discord and living through that vicariously. Stop trying to ruin this. Just comment your thoughts. You can even just comment on scenes without being like, I really like this. You can just be like, holy crap, what is going on with this? And then we can be like, that could be holy crap. Yeah. I think I comment on things and I don't realize that I haven't said anything like quantitative about whether I'm enjoying it or not. And like people be like, wait, are you like liking this? And I'll either be like, yes, it's amazing, or like, yeah, it's pretty good. Like I'll just be like, I did not see this coming. And I mean, that could be like, this is completely ridiculous, or that could be like, this is genius. Just be like that. You don't have to say whether you're immersed or not. You can just be like, holy crap, what's going on here, you know?
But I'm pretty confident in this next bunch. And so I think things will likely come down to splitting hairs on maybe the favorite book. So Yeah, I think it's going to come down to the wire. We shall see, though. All right, thanks for joining me.
Hell, you know what? If Lions is your favorite and Kyle wins because of that, that's cool too. Lions rules. I actually care more.
Bernard Cornwell could be his favorite.
That's true. And in that case, I'd have to read it just to be like, this is not better than Brightness Long Ago, which means Kyle would double win because it'd get me to read that book.
I don't believe Last Kingdom is better than any of those. Like, if I was to rank all these books, I would put The Last Kingdom second last after Shards of Honor. So like, it shouldn't win favorite book.
But Ben's crazy. Ben
Ben's
is a little crazy, so we'll.
And I do love Cornwell, so that has potential.
Stop it! Stop. None of this. One of the GGK books are
all 20 if you just put that as your favorite.
Hey. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get rich off this. All right,
take higher bids.
But I really care more about you enjoying the 2 GGK books and Wall of Storms more than winning. Like, if someone was like, all right, Jake, you have to choose. Does Lions of Our, like, you have to either choose Lions of Our Song becomes Ben's favorite book of all time, or he gives it like 3 stars and you just win. I'm like, no, I want it to be his favorite book of all time, way more than him giving it to. Like, if you give it 3 stars, I'm not going to be like, yes, I win this competition. I'll be like, hold up, you better have a good bloody explanation for this. Because this is outrageous.
This is going to be the last time that I talk in this thing, but I just want to point out how funny it is that in every live, somebody's trying to finish a live, and Jake's just going on and on about anecdotes, and then somebody's like, okay, thank you. And then Jake is like, yeah. No,
this isn't live, Kyle, so stop it. Get wrecked.
That is true. This is recorded, and we could edit out the attempted times to end, but unlikely.
I just am aware that your wife is probably sitting there seething right now.
I'd like to apologize to Ben's wife. You can blame me.
So
throw me under.
We're gonna get to bed soon after here because it's pretty late. But thanks for jumping on, Kyle and Jake. Thanks for these awesome picks for starting me on 2 new series that I think could become new favorites. So let's go. This is a big success so far. All right.
Thanks for watching,
joining us, everyone.
People.
Bye, everybody.
Rules Quest also rules.
Stay safe.
That too.